Imagine a world of silence, a world.
In 1700, England was a green land. Most people lived and died within 10 miles of where they were born.
When the sun went down, work stopped. The night belonged to the dark.
Life was circular, governed by the seasons. You harvested what you grew. If the harvest failed, you starved.
Industry existed, but it was domestic. The cottage industry. The home was the factory. Wool was king. For centuries, England's wealth was built on the backs of sheep. London was a merchant city, trading with the world. But it consumed. It didn't mass produce.
But a crisis was looming. England was running out of wood. The forests were disappearing.
Then came the Enclosure Acts. The rich landowners fenced off the common land.
Commoners lost their grazing rights. The land became private property, optimized for profit, not survival. Innovation arrived. Jethro Tull's seed drill planted in rows, not random scatters. Efficiency skyrocketed.
New crop rotations meant fields never had to rest. Food production exploded. And more food meant more people. The population began to climb. And these new people needed work. Pushed off the land by enclosures, the rural poor began to drift towards the towns. A workforce in waiting.
Underneath the green fields lay the black gold. Coal.
1709, Abraham Darby makes a discovery that changes history. Charcoal is too scarce and costly. This coke burns hotter and purer. He smelts iron using coke, not charcoal. This will reshape the industry forever.
It started with cooking pots. But cheap iron meant England could build anything.
But the deeper they dug for coal, the more the mines flooded. The water was stopping progress.
Horses couldn't pump fast enough. They needed a new kind of power.
1712. Thomas Newcomen invents the atmospheric engine, the first machine to turn heat into motion. It was inefficient and hungry for coal, but it drained the mines. The age of steam had begun.
1733. John Kay invents the flying shuttle. It doubled the speed of weaving.
But this created a problem. The weavers were too fast. The spinners couldn't make thread fast enough. A yarn famine.
For centuries, one person could only spin one thread at a time.
Legend says James Hargreaves saw a wheel fall over and realized, if the spindle is upright, one wheel can power many.
The spinning jenny. Suddenly, one person could spin 8 threads, then 16, then 80.
The machine was still small enough for a cottage, but just barely. Productivity soared.
Neighbors feared for their jobs. They broke into Hargreaves' home and smashed his machines. The first resistance.
He invented the water frame. It produced strong thread, but it needed water power.
Enter Richard Arkwright, a barber turned entrepreneur. He didn't just want a better machine, he wanted a new system.
The world's first modern factory. Cromford Mill.
In 1771, at Cromford, he did something radical. He brought the workers to the machine.
For the first time, life was not ruled by the sun, but by the clock. The shift was born.
Inside, a deafening roar. The machines never slept, and they needed tending.
But factories needed coal and raw cotton. England's roads were medieval mud tracks.
Arkwright employed whole families, but especially children. Their small fingers were perfect for the delicate threads.
He built the Bridgewater Canal, the first industrial canal, a river that didn't follow nature, but man's will.
The Duke of Bridgewater had a problem. He had coal, but he couldn't get it to Manchester cheaply.
He built a canal over a river. A ship sailing over a ship.
It was an engineering marvel.
The price of coal in Manchester dropped by half overnight. The canal age had begun.
In the cities, the poor sought escape. The gin craze ravaged London. Cheap spirit for a desperate populace.
But for the rising middle class, there were coffee houses, the penny universities, where ideas and stocks were traded.
1779. In Shropshire, they did the unthinkable. They built a bridge entirely of iron.
It stands today as a monument to the moment iron conquered stone.
Josiah Wedgwood used these canals to transport delicate pottery without breaking it. Industry began to connect. In the Midlands, the Lunar Society met, scientists and industrialists dreaming of a new world. Gentlemen, the principles of steam can transform industry. Precisely. Precision in engineering is key. And applied to ceramics, it could revolutionize production.
Watt's engine didn't just pump, it turned. It could power a factory anywhere, not just by a river.
The tether to nature was cut. The age of wind and water was over. The age of steam had arrived.
I sell here, sir, what all the world desires to have. Power. Power to drive the world, Mr. Bolton. Together we shall.
The tether to nature was cut. The age of wind and water was over. The age of steam had arrived. Watt's engine didn't just pump, it turned. It could power a factory anywhere, not just by a river.
The tether to nature was cut. The age of wind and water was over. The age of steam had arrived. By 1780, the spark had been lit. Now, it would become a firestorm.
Next, the world speeds up.
The cities grow black.
And the empire expands.
Iron. It was brittle and hard to shape, until Henry Cort invented puddling, stirring the carbon out of the fire.
Suddenly, iron could be rolled into sheets, rails, and beams. The skeleton of the new world was being forged. War fueled the furnaces. While Napoleon conquered Europe with armies, Britain fought back with industry. The Royal Navy needed 100,000 pulley blocks a year. Mark Brunel built the world's first automated production line to make them. Industry won the war. British ships were better built, better armed, and produced faster than the French could imagine.
Manchester. They called it Cottonopolis, the shock city of the age, a new kind of urban existence.
In 1801, 20% lived in cities. By 1850, it would be 50%. The greatest migration in British history.